to do this episode. Um, so I don't have an access to show you like a chart. Do I have a share screen here? No, I have to share this, share that, save highlight, why not? And this episode is kind of an intuitive calling to give you some information about protection. And it's meant not just for astrology lovers or magic oriented people, but in general. And this is a couple of tips to deal with energy and people. So, the first being is bless an enemy. And I talked about bless an enemy, I think, about a year or 2 years ago. And it is simple as it is. A lot of people, when they learn about magic, they begin to curse people. Okay, it's like, oh, now I can get, like, now I can take revenge or find my power. It's not necessarily from malefic motives, but I can find my power, and that's something that can, like, it's a novice thing. As much as I realized, but also there are effective ways to actually get your energy back without having to take your energy outside of you, which is what you do when you curse someone, and put it in the hands of another. Because what the practitioner will do with your energy, if it's being put in their field, they can alchemize it, they can use it, and also have a view to your energy. Okay? They have a view. So whether they choose to practice or not to practice or do something with that, it's just there are better ways to do so. Um, so bless an enemy basically is a practice that says if the person is even thinking about harming me, that means they're disempowered. That means they're not in alignment. That means they're not seeing things clearly. And bless an enemy is basically to wish upon them or to bless them with being aligned, having the well being to see things correctly, um, having the well being and the abundance, so much so that they don't feel the need to disempower others. And as I bless an enemy, I always do, even when I say it right now, I bless myself in the same thing, okay? Bless when you bless an enemy, you can always, it's recommended to bless yourself with the same blessings. This is how you know you genuinely also bless an enemy. What this thing does is kind of put things back in perspective. If something has gone askew, it's almost like alchemizing. It's like alchemizing things. Have them be so in their center that they don't even feel the need to disempower people, um, and wish the same upon yourself. So that is a practice that I've been doing and has proven quite even very useful. And this is also how you find yourself even gaining from situations that were conflictual or that were disempowering, so that you don't really need to do anything other than say the blessing. You can write it in paper, you can do a ritual, but it's not necessary. Just the fact that you have this intention is very, very useful for a lot of types of drama that we have. So people could be jealous of you, people could be envious of your achievements, people could be maybe to just think something of you that's not related to something, but it scares them, or they may be afraid of you. Maybe they think that you want to harm them, and it's not in connection with reality. So bless an enemy is a great practice for that. And then we have another kind of deflective magic. So there are many ways to do deflective magic. Deflective magic basically means that if some energy is sent to you that is not meant, like, how do I say it? If somebody sends a curse, okay, Deflective magic is like return to sender. There are many ways to do return to sender, whether it's candles, whether it's just saying it in your mind. Okay, even if you don't have any materia next to you, you just say it in your mind. You can use certain herbs that are protective and so on and so forth. So adjoining, I always recommend to do bless an enemy when you adjoin a deflective magic, and remain keep the possibility to repent, because if a person repents, then have them the ability to change and transform, and so this also releases you in this way. Like, the best thing a person can do for the world is to heal themselves, right? You probably heard it somewhere, because we're all connected. So with deflective magic, what I find to be very powerful is to take into account, and this is unlike a lot of teachings of a lot of people, and it's not contradicting those. It's just you're not going to always know who sent what and why. Okay? There was an episode that I was doing, a study with me episode, when I was doing um, a reading over material of Christopher Warnock that he posted around how to know if somebody casts a spell on you. And I was not expecting to see anything. I was just trying to see, and I looked at and I did one for me, and I said, because it was horary astrology, I'm investing in this way that if the case will be that somebody did do something like that, I will do ritual to break this. Lo and behold, I was live here on YouTube, and all the signs pointed that somebody did that. And as I was thinking, somebody did that. So immediately I was thinking to my past, I'm Me Too veteran, I did a satire. So maybe people from the academia, my psychologist broke certain boundaries and then unfortunately was violent. Um, so I thought maybe my psychologist told me they don't know what energy, or I had to leave someone and maybe them, I don't know. Eventually, as I was reading further, it seemed to be, and I'm not sure who is who, but somebody from the neighborhood, somebody that I didn't even know, perhaps was sending their children to make some spells. Again, I know I live in an Orthodox neighborhood and so on and so forth. Um, and funnily enough, I had a broken mirror in the house, and then I just took it out. It was too heavy to carry. So I was putting it outside, and it was facing the neighbors that were to the opposite side of the street. Then the makler, the real estate person that manages the estate, then he would later take this mirror out. But before that, a day afterwards, I was just cleaning my porch, and a police came into the house looking for the people, for those neighbors. And they asked me if they were there, and I was like, I don't know, you know, like, which I genuinely didn't know, but I also, I wouldn't, um, I don't know what's the deal, I wouldn't snitch on them. So apparently the children were being treating somebody who was checking the tickets in the bus badly, and that's why the police came. Um, but that was and then a day afterwards, the muggler took the mirror away to the garbage can, and the mirror broke. So it was maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And the I don't know is important. And what's important here is that when I realized that, hey, somebody did some curse, immediately I was thinking about people that I know that could have the motive to try to put me down, especially if they tried to do that in the real world, right? And that was not even the case. It was somebody that I didn't know at all. Now, uh, to do deflective magic, to return to sender, to defend your boundaries, to deflect, you don't necessarily have to know who did what. Okay? In the energy world, there is a thing called shape shifting. What is shape shifting? So, let's say you had a partner, okay? And you broke up with this partner. This partner, one of the ways that they could astral project, but it's not only that they could astral project, it's okay, you will identify their energy and know that that's over. What they can do is they can look at your surroundings. Maybe you are watching this person, maybe you're seeing that person, and so they can come with their energy kind of blending into the form or making you think that it is that person that does that, which you don't know. And then you can like more be more agreeable or be more open, and it can create a lot of confusion. Okay, like you can think that somebody is interested in you that they're not, or it's kind of like it's both being trickery but also attempts to get into your field of energy through another person. So love example, and there are many myths around that, but this is actually happening. Like this is something that can actually happen. And so if you, let's say, want to defend yourself and you are only going with the teachings to tell you you must know who that person is, then you could end up sending back to a person that didn't initiate anything. Okay? And this is why both in manifesting on a relational, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, and in deflecting, my clear recommendation is that you do it on a non person specific basis. Like, whoever sent this, it is unwelcomed, return it to sender, and bless an enemy. Okay, and a non specific bless an enemy can simply be that whatever being, whatever person, living or not alive, that did that, I bless them with being so much in well-being and centered that they do not even feel the need to oppress or to interfere or to trick other people in a way that is malefic. And I bless myself with the same thing, living and dead, right? And this is, it's simple. It simplifies things, and it is useful. Okay, not with the and I really like to quote Mark Bayersky on this. No one has the power over you. Okay, it's a good mantra. No one has the power over you. Okay, no one has the power over me. Okay, no one has power over you. That brings things into alignment. If you don't feel like that speaks to you or that is true to you, then, like I said, you can do intention, bless an enemy, um, ooh, ask for divine help. Thank you very much. And so timely, I got rosemary tea. So, those things are really important for your peace of mind so that you don't get tricked that easy. You don't get out of your balance that easy. Okay? Before I even did astrology videos, and I feel like this is a calling, now Venus is in Gemini. Gemini is the trickster, and Mercury is in Taurus. So they can be tricksters around women, trickster men, or men trying to trick women, and so on. And also like the gender issue coming up. And I saw on Twitter two people at the same day posting Esther Perel, which I think is a great teaching for the times. And she talks about basically how do we find trustworthy people or trustworthy relationships by being more aware of why people cheat, why do we cheat, why does somebody who loves their spouse ends up in an affair, and how can we be more authentic and grow um, by adopting certain standards that are more in touch with reality. If you watch my outer planets to inner planets, Venus with the outer planets, okay, this is a fantastic video for this. Okay, not because I made it, because it is such an important video on my Venus wisdom. In Venus Day, you scroll and you find the Venus wisdom when I talk about the outer planets to Venus with the outer planets. Then uh, Truth in Aspect Astrology talks about Uranian relationships and those affairs that people seem to have, usually around Uranus opposition. So those are great things to listen to. And I talked about Venus ingressing, just yesterday I dropped a video about Venus ingressing into the twins and how the twins is trustworthy, but it does take play in the field, it does take changeability, and it's not trustworthy in the sense that it's fixed. Okay, it's just in the sense that you need to allow for truth to come to the air. Otherwise, you will hear the superficial lies that are actually this person being trustworthy. You're like, you're not ready for the truth. I'm not going to tell you the truth, which is okay. We all have truths that we're more or less comfortable with. This happens, right? And so, both as you're manifesting relationships and as you are deflecting or setting boundaries, keep that in mind. Go to the essence. What do I desire? What do I do want? Yeah. Okay. What do I do want? Or, for example, to be able to flow with the changeability of things, something that came to my mind now, is something that I manifest. To be able to be adaptable and take the good thing out of each time or each event that comes. Um, and also, when we deflect, okay, we just deflect. Okay, I want my boundaries to be respected. I want whatever interferes to go back to sender with their ability to repent, to change, and bless the enemy, all that, um, without having to name a specific person. Because you're not like, unless there are cases, like with my psychologist, that he told me, look, he is standing in front of me and speaking in 3D. Okay, most of the cases are not going to be like that. And you don't have to know who it is to find your power in a situation. And also, and I like this as Antares wisdom. And this I'm thankful to two great women. One is Caitlin Kopak, that is doing amazing astrological magic. And the other is Lada Duncheva. So, um, Antares, if you have it like me in your 10th house or at any house, Antares has to do with being victorious over time by being emotionally resilient. And this is a teaching that I got from Lada Duncheva, that she talks about Antares, or if you have planets around between, I think it was 5 to 15 degrees of Sagittarius, you may experience the Antares archetype. So let's say you are at work and Caitlin spoke about that, like suddenly people that stalking her or being mean to her for no what seems to be no reason. You have to be resilient and push through this. um, and so with Antares, whether it's work or if seventh house can also be relationships, um, what happens is that you're shining your own light, and then you suddenly have people that are in either bullying or being like enemy to you, or putting you down, whether in your face or behind your back. And the response, which is very difficult, is not to lash at them, but actually to be resilient and to shine your light and to keep on shining your light. And eventually the truth comes out. Okay, eventually the truth comes out, but it does take a bit of resilience. Um, so Antares for I did a little magical work with Antares, and you can see it in the title of the video for myself. Um, so definitely what I got is this sense of resilience, not being afraid to be alone, in my opinion. And then as you are shining your light and standing your truth, you see that it can kind of be like your colleagues or large amount of your colleagues or the most respectable people in your community might not agree with you, and they might not see how you mean it or why you mean that, or they might think that you know all kinds of things of you. And then kind of like you meet somebody that you didn't know that are top notch, and they're like, I get what you're saying. This is totally true. And so I'm not gonna say a lot, but something like that happened to me. um, and I realized how a weird election that was definitely like, I'm not a commercial, like I'm not even a magician, right? I'm just learning this. But putting the moon with Antares in the eighth house, which is occult and generational wealth, and the energy of other people. And Jupiter was in the 12th, okay? And then another election with Jupiter in the 11th house and Antares and the moon in the 7th. Okay, so it's kind of like forming new partnerships, all the while um, being able to be resilient when you are isolated, when you um, like in literally I had a situation like I was literally ignored, but in such a visible way, like when somebody answers everybody and then like this one person that they don't like what they say, they just ignore. um, but you have to stand your truth in the situation, and then you find out that you do find like the you stand in your truth, and eventually it is being recognized, eventually it is being seen. um, and this is also an experience I had with Antares that required me to a not be a dick as I'm being resilient, also you know see where the other person is coming from, um, and stay centered. Okay, so the joint of bless an enemy of deflective magic that is not specific, and this is so important because there are many things that can point you to many things, and especially when it comes to social interactions, um, there are many things that can point at many things. Okay? People will usually like out themselves when they are, something like that happened to me in the previous series of eclipses. When Pluto was on my lot of fortune in my 11th house in Capricorn, and I had to let go of a lot of people for the sake of my well being, but a lot of people also from the plutocracy of the holistic output. Um, and so when you keep it professional, when you're like, okay, I sever ties with this person because we had a certain disagreement on a professional thing, and you don't take it personally. You're like their worldview, point at them that now they think you are this person and that person, you're actually saying clear things. And I had it when I was living an unhealthy relationship. It was very difficult for someone who was also my mentor to understand that I'm not, it's not me being in lack kind of thing, but, or blaming others for no reason. It's like, no, this person is genuinely being violent towards me and I'm standing my ground. Looking for what I do and severing ties with what I don't want, and so on and so forth. So I had to kind of ditch. And they were quoting Osho, which was, and I don't blame. Like I would have, like, I would not know if I was not in touch with the people that told me that Osho was a serial rapist. I would not know. I would just think, oh, like that's some ancient guru. Um, and it also happened to me previously with someone who was talking about intuition and so on and so forth. And I was trying to learn from her because I just left this weird relationship with my psychologist where I felt like, hey, intuition did not, like, there were red flags, but also there were certain intuitions in the beginning that did not, like, that told me, yes, that this is a good person to go to therapy with. And that colleague that I was speaking with later found out that the person that she brought to her social group was a serial rapist that hurt, I think, more than hundreds of women along his career. So I'm very, like, I really hope that she was not hurt. Um, but this is and I say this with zero judgment because this, I wouldn't want to be her in these situations. Like, she's so sure, I got this right, I got this right, I got this right, and then imagine you posting something, and you're so sure about the person, and then you find out that they're serial rapists. So those are, those are just things that happen. Um, and in the beginning, nobody's going to see, if you have this thing that you set out, nobody's going to see what the heck are you thinking, because it's a new voice in the discourse. and it can take some time for people to readjust and like, oh, damn, that connects with that, connects with that, connects with that, connects with that, and that's true. Um, so this is more on a career level, on a relational level, like I said. So both when you manifest relationships and when you set boundaries, okay, do it in a non-specific way because you never know what you never know. Um, and we all are people. We can all project. We can all be susceptible to, bias and all that. Um, and so when you get to the bottom of it, and you do things essentially rather than specifically, or trying to diagnose who is who, which you can always allow things to emerge and allow things to reveal themselves because they do. Okay, they do. Um, and there is also a level of intricacy to that. Okay, like I said, we are. It's not for nothing that the teaching of Esther Perel is being so prominent at these times, because let's say, in terms of relationships, okay, you manifested a certain great love, you got this great love, then something comes up, and you think it's external forces, it's external for. I've had this, not in a love, but in a friendship. I was 10 years a friend, good friend of someone, and then certain things happened that seemed like a lot of people from the outside are trying to break things. Um, and partially that was true, but also partially later I found out that that person was trying to isolate me for certain groups of people so they'll have more control. Okay, and of course, eventually, this is what pushed me away. And so um, that that's like that's something that can happen. And those teaching that, well, it can seem like outside forces are operating, it's always good to tend to the within thingy. And it can be something as simple as a certain psychological need that was not met, or that somebody was afraid to express their own desires. Esther Perel is great in demonstrating that way better than I say it. And then when you do meet that need, also, if you take the wisdom of Uranus return, it can simply be, let's say, you're married, okay? Let's say two men are married, okay? And then one of these men have an affair, and they don't know why, because they're in love with their partners. It seems like everything is okay, but somehow there was something in their professional life that they were not pursuing. And they have this affair with this person that sparks their shine to go after it, to release this. Now, in the mundane level, they had an affair. From the Uranian point of view, Uranus is Kundalini rise, and that's creating with creativity, and that's where you tell us where you're actually supposed to go. And so that was needed from a bird's eye view. It was much preferred that this person has an affair and do pursue their, I don't know, painting career, rather than that person staying happily married but developing ailments, maybe even in the reproductive system, for not going after what they desire in terms of their career. And so it happens through an affair that raises the kundalini and then makes us drops inhibitions. And the affair was more like a side effect of something else that was happening, that in general does not is not at all a threat to the existing relationship, if it is meant, right? If it is meant to be. There are also situations where people were in relationships that are not healthy for them, or that are only healthy to some degree. Then Uranus Kundalini rise, a deep affair, and they did not stay either with the person they were previously married to or the person they had an affair with, but they were on an all new path for them. And maybe it was time for them to be solitary. Maybe it was time for them to do what they're after, and then they drop, like it's like Hebrew says shalachet, okay, shedding the leaves. Okay, shedding the leaves, shedding the old leaves. Then they are actually in their center, and then they can meet someone who is true to that. Okay, this is also why you don't want to curse people for no reason. Okay, It's not always somebody trying to break apart. It can also be something that just happens and has a higher meaning. What the One of the best things I've seen around is working with the moon. Okay, Moon Talisman, if you're up to it. Okay, Moon Talisman by Sphere and Sun really the great Moon Talisman. Another person that did the great Moon Talisman recently was Christopher Warnock. And so there were two specific things, two different things. And working with the moon is basically about meeting your own um, emotional needs. Okay, that's very efficient for relationships. Just go back to my blessed enemy, okay? Because when you do this blessed enemy, it can be that there was something in your career you weren't pursuing something to the fullest, or you weren't true to your nature, or you weren't speaking up about certain things that you're like keeping it in your belly, and now you're like you find a way to say it. Like they're gonna agree with me, not gonna agree with me, I'm gonna lose friends. Fuck it, I say it, I stick in my truth. Or I go after this thing, or I go after that thing, and you will always be victorious when you do that. That does take resilience, but you will always be victorious when you do that. Um, so that's great for all kinds of relational drama. And just more word about the moon. Another great teacher with moon relation and the moon energy is Lada Duncheva. I think she learned this particular tip from Ernst Wilhelm, but I'm not sure because it's a Vedic tip, if I'm not mistaken. And when she talks about the moon in synastries, this is an old Lada Duncheva video. She had a birthday recently, so happy solar return to Lada. And one of the teachings that I found this to be also very helpful as I began to go from composite readings to kind of empower the person that comes to me for a reading beyond the current composite. I noticed that this moon tip is so potent and powerful. It doesn't make or break the whole relationship, but it can be so important. If the partner's moon, your partner's moon, okay, is closer to your moon than your moon is closer to their moon, they're going to they're going to be the main investor emotionally in this relationship. They're going to provide for you emotionally, while you are the more receptive partner. It's not about gender, okay? It's just the moon thing. And think about how much of our extramarital stuff can be explained by this. Okay, I had a very good friend. We've known each other for a decade and so on and so forth. And we were not partners. And when I was looking at this tip at our moons, I could clearly see they had a moon in Scorpio. I have a moon in Cancer. So I felt more like a caregiver to this person, more like the older sister, and so I could not be like erotically attracted, as my moon in Cancer is more receptive and actually desires those partners who provide for me emotionally in a caregiving way. So that was like no matter how much they would try or not try, we could be great friends, but I would always feel like the emotional provider, which would detract me from seeing them as a marital partner. Okay, and that is just on an emotional level, not even on a cognitive level, on an emotional level. On the other hand, if that was the other way around, and my emotional need would be maybe I would have a more young, like moon that wants to provide, to give, to care for somebody else, and they would have a more yin, like moon, as moon in Scorpio is, uh, which can be explained in some things. Then we would have emotional match, and this is a value that Lada called respect in relationships. And this is on an emotional level. Okay? So this is a great tip. Okay. Are you the type of moon that wants to be receptive? Are you the type of moon that wants to be providing on an and you'll see that. Okay, you'll see that. You see the kind of people that are not going to enjoy being emotionally provided for as much as being the emotional caregiver. It doesn't mean that you're not good friends. It doesn't mean that you don't listen to each other. It doesn't mean that you don't have good conversations. It just means that one of you is going to be a lot more on the other spoon, on the outer spoon kind of connection. Um, so this is a great tip that I think is important to keep in mind. And in general, moon works with our emotional attachment. Okay, so like I've been working with the moon talisman in energy, and I'm just like, the reason I haven't ordered it is because I know I'm gonna need it with some other like deneb algae or something that protects, and and I know that I'm a person that had non-dual experiences, so I'm not going to like do harm to myself. And I just need to build, like, to build the the cash to do that and the shipping. But definitely, if you are a person that can work and read the Sphere and Sundry about the moon, or if you have the wealth, then order also Chris Warnock's Talisman of the Moon, that gives you this. And Chris has this introduction about who, like, to whom it is better. I think he also offers consultations, and those are more talismans that are yeah, pendants. um, well, the Sphere and Sundry can definitely point you at bringing up the emotional issues that you have around attachment and working them through in your own methods. So I found that to be superb. Um, and this is also, remember that Cancer also has Procyon as a fixed star. And Procyon, Christopher Warnock has a great Procyon talisman. Procyon is about sweetening. So if somebody, let's say, is just jealous or envying you, and it's not like they're wanting to kill you, okay? It's just general being human being. Procyon can sweeten it. So it can sweeten the relation. Something comes to your ears, can sweeten the relation. Okay. Another thing to keep in mind is that if somebody sends something, so in good mantra, may all of the curses, or if somebody curses, they may turn into a blessing. Okay, the blessed enemy has the power to do so, and this is just so powerful. If somebody sends negative energy your way, it will become a blessing to you, that you will only be benefiting this. So instead of them cursing you, may turn into blessing. This is also another tip for you. Um, on a relational level, moon, and of course there's Venus. So think about it. When you make a Venus talisman, the moon is applying to Venus, and if the moon is in a good situation, so you're also receptive. I'm currently waiting for the Venus body butter or something like that by Helios, which I think is also very much inspired by Caitlin Kopak. It's like she's doing the exact same thing, but with better shipping for people who live closer to Europe. Um, and I really like the concept of being able to receive the blessings of Venus. So Venus gives you a sense of attractiveness, being comfortable in your sensuality, and so on, receiving gifts. The moon helps you to be receptive and to bring that in. So if you have like a fire Venus, so you can be very, femme fatale or sexually attractive, but not be able to receive the energy, or to be constantly hungry. So that perhaps Venus in Taurus with this moon being receptive and so on can be good. Um, mm, mm, mm. And I also like the Venus Spica, the Venus Spica. I think Sphere and Sundry still have Venus Spica, but don't take all of them because I'm also planning to order. So, um, Venus Spica is really about speaking up and have good communication in your relationships, whether it's career or this, having this tough conversation in a way that you can stand for your rights and assert yourself, but still, make a point without making an enemy. So you can see how when I touch these defenses, I'm also touching the inner stuff. Okay, we set the fence around. we assert ourselves so that we can relax and be more amiable to ourselves. That's the teaching of today. I want to see something. I want to see if I can. No, I want to. No, you won't see it. Actually, you won't see it. I want to see if I can look at the chart of right now and see why was I called to do this video to begin. Okay, so I checked the chart. So apparently we are in a Saturn day where I'm at in a Venus hour. So I was talking about defending Saturn boundaries, Venus relationships, and Venus is square in Saturn. So what was perfecting for this video is basically me talking about boundaries in relationships and also giving a lot of relationship tips. Um, and this happens just as Venus squares Saturn, gives it the exact square, kind of like a remedy for the square, right? So this is something that called on this episode. I'm just gonna take a look at the chart and see what else is there. Okay, so the moon is it was just separating from Deneb Algedi. Okay, the midheaven was in Cancer, in 27 Cancer. The moon was separating from Deneb Algedi, and sextile in Jupiter. So separating also from sextile in Jupiter and the Sun. So I find it very beautiful. Okay, I was both speaking about and Taurus and the talismans I made, and about the moon. So moon. So the contribution of the moon, the midheaven in Cancer. I think the midheaven probably was around Procyon when I talked about Procyon, which is so exciting. I love doing these things. And so Denebalgadi with the moon. Okay, so how Denebalgadi can actually help protect your relationships. Okay, I miss the moon on Denebalgadi. Probably like maybe this video is a talisman because the moon on Dana Balgadi, when the moon is sextile in Jupiter, is so good. I really hope somebody harvested this election. And if you did, then you can put it in the comments below, and that's very okay to advertise yourself if you did. It's relevant to this video, so just a reaction. Because I'm interested in your material if you did that. So I'm not in a place where I can currently make anything magical here where I'm at. So yeah, we had the Mundane Balgidi election, which I also mentioned that like, oh, I just need to build up for that, and then that was an election. So this is the beauty of how astrology works. I'm speaking about something. Yes, the moon is going through this, um, and that's yeah, that was a great video. This was a great video. I hope it gave you both the tips on how to protect yourself, how to deflect, how to remove the drama and the gaslighting and the crazy making ways that the universe can act, and kind of hone in and center on the important things in your life, on meeting your emotional needs, on receiving, being receptive, having respect in your relationship. Are you the type of moon that needs to be emotionally provided for, or do you like to emotionally provide? Okay, or do you like to have it more equal? Then you might find a person whose moon is opposite in your moon. Um, and some tips and notes on what type of magic you can use in your favor, how to be resilient. Okay, so take. And by the way, regarding Antares, if you are inspired to use the energy or screen save my stuff, that's 100% okay. I'm so for and supportive, but do take a note. Go to Twitter. I'm Talisher on Twitter, and find the chart, because as you can see, this is not okay. Those elections were not commercially made, and it's for you to judge if it is good for you. So okay, just pay attention to the chart and see if you're called in to work with something. And Hog Astrology, that is now making great mentorship walks that are so fascinating. So if you're around Oregon, then you might want to join that. Um, she once made, guided by spirit, a Venus in Virgo talisman. And Venus in Virgo, of course, is fallen, right? Is in detriment. But why was she making it? It was helping her to be more productive. So Venus is to feel like doing something, and Virgo is productive. So feel like being productive, and that was useful for her. It's not a talisman that you would naturally sell commercially, but it was a very personal talisman. So when I have this Antares thingy. If you feel called in, if you're inspired, go ahead, screen save, work with that. Like, yeah, absolutely, give me feedback. But also, check the chart. The moon was separating from a square to Saturn. Look, I made this video on the Venus square Saturn. Saturn, Saturn, Saturn. Okay? With a little bit of herbs on my feet. I have this. This literally is rosemary separating my toes. So, yes, I'm crazy that way. So you can see how it works for me and why was it so good for me. But it doesn't necessarily that it's not necessarily the case it's going to be for you, and it was not designed to be commercially sold. Okay, so, like, if you're wondering, it's like, hey, I've seen this magic that Shirley does. I really want to screen save and use it on my cell phone and so on. Yes, I'm totally pro that. I don't think that is plagiarism when it's for personal use. On the other hand, I actually think that if it helps you to manifest wealth, then I'll be all the more desirous. And when it's time for like dividends or something like that, then I'm sure it will come. Um, and this is like 100% okay. Just make sure it's good for you, okay, so that you're not harmed by that. That's all my concern. Do no harm with that thing. um yep. So no one has the power over you. You don't need to know who it is to deflect it. You can go back to yourself, meet your needs. You have the right to be sensual and have your boundaries respected on all levels and energy. Bless an enemy. And um, what else did I say here? Yeah, I think that's about it. So, thank you very much for being here. I'll be seeing you on my next Spirit of Matter episode. I don't know when should I post this. Like, when should I post this? I know when I made this. When should I post this? Well, hello there. Um, when do you think I should post this? Maybe write to me. You have an election. Maybe the next time the moon is on my midheaven. Maybe that. I'll see it. Bye bye. Oh, and you can subscribe to me if you want to watch more videos or more content. Unfortunately, YouTube is not really providing for content creators, so I'll have to think about ways to make this profitable. That can be Patreon, that can be merchandise, that can be sponsors. I don't know. I don't know. Um, so yeah, because I'm thinking about making this live donation based when I get viewers, and the more to have freedom, like creative freedom, is something that's very important to me. To have creative freedom, and yeah, um, that's and then to make a life while making a living. So, is anyone. Um, I don't currently particularly do readings. If you feel called for me to do a reading to you, then perhaps you have a good explanation for that and that can be accounted for. But do know, like, I'm a person that right now at this time in my life, I prefer to be reading charts that I can talk about. Okay, there's a lot of what happens when you are person to person, then there is secrecy that you need to keep, and that's way okay. Right now, I prefer to be able to talk about what I do. So this is why I also don't open myself to incoming reading at this time. I also have Pluto in my 12th house, and one of the rulers is in the 10th. So that means that what Pluto does is illuminate on things, and then they end up being something I publicly speak about. And so I don't think that is so compatible with one-to-one readings or with places where we actually want or need or ethically need for things to be sufficient, menschlich, okay, person to person. So that's for the time being. This is why I don't invite you. Like, I'm open for readings. Like, yeah, well, and it's not because I don't like to read or I don't like to give value. It's because, like I said, it's not what's being called for me to do right now. More like this content, more like being creative, um, and I'll see what happens and how do I cash in on that in a ethically sourced way. So, and yes, my entire work is also for ethically sourced wealth. If you find that useful, great, check the chart. Bye bye. What? X. I will do. Wait. Sit subscribe.